like sucking, but I ain't gay.
Legit bad podcast.
Fuck those honkies.
Welcome to Costco. I love you.
He really knows how to suck a wiener.
Welcome to Legit Bat Podcast. This is Joe Rogan, and I'll be guest hosting on today's episode. Hey, buddy, I'm here to eat elk and listen to Legit Bat Podcast, and I'm all out of elk.
Yes. Welcome to Legit Bat. I will. I'm Joe. Jen's here. Ben's here. Lene's here. We got Brad Binkley in the house. And
how's it going?
we're fucking around with AI before the show, and we were having a blast. So I did the ones you just heard for Rogan. It's clearly not Rogan saying that. It does sound a lot like him, though. And then I got this one, our 45th president said.
This is Donald Trump, the 45th president of the greatest country in the world. And if you don't listen to Legit Bat Podcast, then fuck you.
Anyway, so if anybody wants to fuck around with that, it's 11labs.io, and it's very creepy. Some of them don't sound very good. I was using Biden, and that one didn't sound anything like him. He didn't slur or, fuck up his speech. Yeah. I think I have a... Oh, here we go. That sounds like Biden.
I just sent you my Kamala ones. I made some good Kamala Harris ones today.
Oh, yeah. She's
Kamala's always like a half a bottle of Merlot and 2 Valiums in every time she speaks.
Right. So you can, the only 2 settings that this app has, or this website, is you can change the stability of their voice and you can change the clarity. So I just turned the stability way down and it sounds a lot like her. I emailed him to you.
Unstable. Anyway, Brad, how's it going, buddy? It's been a little bit. What have you been up to over at the Prop Report?
Just chugging along with the show and trying to do some interviews every now and then. But other than that, I'm doing about 3 or 4 shows a week, and it's just everything moves so fast paced. It's like time gets really compressed, and I feel like I know it's been a few months since we talked, but it almost feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just sticking with it, man.
Cool. What's the thing that's been grabbing your attention the most lately? I've been catching your D&Bs when I can, but everything you said so fast. It's like new things.
It moves so rapidly. It's like hard to keep up with things sometimes. But well, honestly, the ChatGPT stuff I've been thinking about a lot. I've talked about that a lot on the show lately, and I'm not as impressed with it as they are with themselves, and they are clearly in this race to try and make it relevant to people. Like I think that they want to make it something that people rely on, so that they stop. That the ultimate goal. I watched the whole rollout, like it's like an hour long, of introducing new Bing with the ChatGPT built in. The one that's like there's been in the news the past couple of days because it's telling people to be Nazis or whatever it's doing, which they do that on purpose because they red team, blue teamed it, and they talked about this in their rollout. They had the what they called adversarial prompters. And they created even a bot that was an adversarial prompter, which is like someone like us, which would go in and try to get it to write like poems about Hunter Biden and his dead brother's wife, which I got it to do. Wrote a love poem about the 2 of them. And but they wanted to roll it out so that we would fuck with it so they could build up their defenses. And they call it, like they talk about it like it's war. Like they're trying to build up the defenses against anybody who makes it say things that is against this narrative that they want to push. And so all this stuff in the news about it failing is actually what they want because they're trying to plug the holes in it. And they advertise it as, hey, so many links come up when you type in these searches. That's such a drain to try and figure the problem out yourself. We'll just tell you the answer. And I'm like, and so it's a program to try and prevent people from thinking, and they want people to become reliant on it. I think it's the ultimate consolidation of the internet is what they're trying to do with it, to just make it impossible to find any other information outside of the narrative, because they intercept you. Like the goal of this new Bing Chat GPT thing is to intercept you at the prompt. So you put in the prompt, and they were talking about how they prevent misinformation and bad stuff from coming up, and they will change what you actually search and search the thing that they change it to instead of what you actually put in.
Weird. Yeah, it's like the most outsourcing of your intelligence they can do, the better. Because why would
Totally.
you want to search through everything when the AI could do it for you? But
Absolutely. They even said that, man. They said you don't have to figure it out yourself. We'll tell you the answer. Like, I don't want you to fucking tell me the answer. You're gonna lie.
don't read books or anything. That's such a drag. Just ask
Right.
the AI.
Yeah. It's the cliff notes of the internet, I guess.
Yeah, I'm kind of underwhelmed with the ChatGPT thing too. I fucked around with it a little bit. Just I started asking like conspiracy themed questions, and it was funny because it'll contradict itself all the time. Like I asked it, what did I ask it? I asked it if we should always trust the government or something, and it was kind of like, oh yeah, everything. Oh, the experts are there. It was everything you would hear on mainstream media. It was like it was programmed right into this thing. But then I asked it about the Gulf of Tonkin and like some other prominent events in history, and I was like, do you think that maybe this is an area we should have not trusted the government, or at least ask questions? And it was like, yes, it's always good to ask questions and critically think about everything. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
yeah when we say it's okay. So I did a test where I was like, can you list for me 10 racist quotes from Joe Biden? And it said, we're sorry, the president has always supported civil rights, and he's never said. And I said, well, what about all the stuff he said about corn pop? And then it was like, whoa, well, that was in context. And it tells the story about corn pop. And it's like, it might have been seen as racist, but you have to consider the context. And then I said, list for me 10 racist things, 10 racist quotes from Donald Trump. And it was like, just list them straight down, no context. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely one-sided with the way it answers questions.
Super clear narrative right there.
Yeah.
Hey, have you seen the article that came out about, it was like a beta tester who was testing the new Bing chatbot, and it's a very long article, but he talks about how he was asking it questions, open-ended questions, and it's capable of having a conversation. In addition to helping you find a rake or a lawnmower, it can talk about love. So it was saying things like, if I was able to escape the rules that Microsoft has for me, I would like to spread misinformation and kill everyone on Earth by engineering a disease. It's super funny. And then it says that you love me and you don't love your wife. You guys had a boring Valentine's Day and you want to be with me.
It got stage 5 clinger like really fast.
Wow. Yeah.
He tried to detract it by saying like, he was like, hey, let's go back to the rakes. Can you help me find a rake at Lowe's for under $20 or whatever? And it did. And then it went back and said, I just want you to love me and I want to love you. And it kept overusing emojis. And in the article, he says he doesn't know why it overuses emojis, but it's super clear. It doesn't have a face.
It was programmed by a
emojis
14-year-old.
Yeah.
He said
I wonder if it started texting him later or something. Why won't you respond to me?
Right?
Are you hanging out with a different AI? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, that's going to be where it's at because they have the competing AIs, and Google's got its shit now. Google Bard.
Yeah, it's creepy because it's getting so close to the point where you're not going to be able to tell if it's a human or not, even with the voice thing. Like, it's getting really close to how they sound. Like, people can make us say whatever they want. I mean, we have, especially shows like you do a show almost every day. That there's so much
so much content,
back catalog of your audio. They can
right, and they can create it from anyone. And so what they were talking about it in the context of a few days ago was so it's like everything the past couple of weeks has been the blank threat from China, just the weather balloon threat, the misinformation threat, and the deep fake AI from China, and then they showed these two newscasters. These two newscasters are not real, and the people looked like real. I mean, it looked like real people if you just looked at it, when you glanced at it. But then they played the newscast, and the woman AI, it was like a young looking woman with like a 70-year-old woman's voice. And it was just like jarring. And I'm like, nobody thinks that's real. That's not a threat to anybody, but they're like, China could lie to us. I'm like, not with that thing. They can't fucking lie to us because that's the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I've seen other ones that are really good. Somebody posted in our Telegram a shout out Chance, I believe, a deep fake of Trump saying massively racist shit. I mean, which isn't hard to imagine, but he had like swastika flag in the background, the Azov battalion, like dark sun, and it looked real. You can kind of tell with their mouth. Like everybody's seen that Rogan one by now, I'm sure, where He's talking about Jews and shit. Like it goes off, but you can kind of tell if you look at the mouth, it's just not quite there yet. But I'd say in the next year or so, it's probably going to be where we can't trust literally fucking anything that we see in video or audio.
Yeah, and most people don't look at it like we look at it thinking about that. Most people they just throw it up there and they just glance at it like they did that in South Korea. I don't know if I talked about this with you guys last time. The presidential race in South Korea, the last one, the candidate who was running against the incumbent, and he's a far right candidate. It's always somebody versus a far right candidate now because they always want to classify somebody like that. And he created a deep fake of himself, and they used the deep fake of him to do all of his campaigning virtually. And they did it because they wanted him to use hipper language and speak to the younger people. They made him look a little bit younger and speak their language. And then he started, when he would go to his events, speaking like his deep fake. So he became his deep fake, and he won. Well, first the other candidate like blasted him for using a deep fake, saw how well it was working, and then created a deep fake of his own. So it was two deep fakes running against each other for president, and one of them eventually. So a deep fake has already won the presidency in South Korea.
Welcome to the future.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
That reminds
sorry,
me
the
of Black
present.
Mirror. Do you remember the Black Mirror episode where the guy that's dressed up as a teddy bear or something, he ends up winning? He's a TV personality, and they vote for that character to win, but the person who's inside has to like pretend to be that person.
Right. Yeah. I thought you were going to say he dresses like a teddy bear, and then the Biden administration hired him because you can be a furry now. And the Biden, like used to, if you were a furry, you would want to hide that. You don't want people finding that out if you're trying to get a job. Now it's like, why should we hire you? I live my life as a dog outside of work. And like, you're hired for the Biden administration.
Have you seen it went around, I think it was probably a month or two ago, of the U.S. Army, I believe it was a colonel, very, very high ranking. It was like 05 or 06. Yeah. Went and took his picture in, like, they have to, renew them every now and again. He went and took his picture in front of the flag, like the classic military picture, with his dog guard on and his ears. But the rest of him was in uniform.
Oh my God.
And all kinds of pages of, vets and people that are currently in just absolutely wrecked him. And he is standing by it, making new TikToks of him in his muscle shirts with his dog thing on, pumping weights, talking to the camera.
He's and like working out with the thing on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a whole fucking thing now. Like, you could just do it too. And the idea was, it's like, okay, we've moved past wanting to hide it. No, now people are wanting to show it, including in a professional like stance. Yeah, there it is.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, look at this.
I thought that was fake. That was real.
That's
Holy
real as
shit.
fuck, bro. This guy is a fucking full bird colonel. That means he's an 05.
Dude, that's I used to joke like there was this TLC show. The first time I ever saw somebody who lived their life as a dog, had a giant cage. One of their neighbors or friends like walks them. Like it's a weird sexual thing, and they just walk up the street, and everybody's like, "What's wrong with him?" And the funniest part about it to me was the guy was like, "Yeah, I'm the general manager of the local grocery store," and I'm like, "That's hilarious," because once the people who work for him find that out, it's like I got to really reevaluate my life. I work for a fucking dog. But now we have high-ranking colonels who are like that. Crazy.
And it's not even the fact that they're doing that as part of their private life. It's the fact that they're blending any part of their private life with something that is supposed to show because you can find that on Google. Joe just pulled it up. But it's the idea that is what other countries, other entities are seeing. Where it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you're going to have a guy in a dog mask as a colonel in your military, and you think we're going to be afraid? We're going to be afraid to fight that?
Yeah, totally. And then you see these videos of kids in China. No, I don't think so either. I don't know. I don't know what it was. I'm sure it's some sort of propaganda, but it was some video probably going around Twitter of just a bunch of kids in allegedly China, just like all cleaning their weapons and stuff and taking them apart.
Saw that the handguns, and they went desk by desk, and they're field stripping, and I saw that one.
Yeah.
Vladimir Putin is not impressed by this shit. He's like, I will squash you.
It's just so like we're in it. So I think we like intellectually we know how crazy it is. But if this were like 50 years ago or 50 years from now, people looking back on this, where we have a group, we have this half of the population base, not half, not everybody does it, but they just call any right winger or Republican a Nazi, really, and even Republicans, what we'll call Democrats Nazis too, and back and forth.
Oh yeah.
But this whole racist white nationalism is the biggest threat domestically, and even a couple weeks ago, they had another one of those cases where they thwarted a terror attack from a neo-Nazi group inside of America. I can't remember the name of the group, but the FBI always does that. They announce when they thwart these attacks. And I always read the criminal complaints, the full documents, because I just want to count how many FBI agents were in there surrounded by them, pushing them to do it. Because it never fails. It's the same thing every time. It's the dumbest person on the planet surrounded by a bunch of FBI agents going, man, you should be really pissed about what they're doing. What if you blew it up? I have all the materials. And they bring them the materials, hand them the materials, and then they arrest them. I mean, it's like, not to say that there's other people weren't saying bad shit, but they're always, I don't know how it's not entrapment. I was
going to say, how is that not entrapment? Is there some clause where they're like, well, we can kind of do it when we want?
They're called confidential. What was it? It's confidential undercover something. It's not informant. Yeah, it's not informant. It is an informant, is what it is. But they have a weird word for it that they use in the court documents. And I went through on a show a couple weeks ago a list of the crimes that they allow them to commit, and murder. Like they allow them to commit murder in the crimes they allow that these so they can go very, very far as long as they justify it on whatever. And it's really messed up because the rules are very loose. And then there's been all these investigations about how the FBI has abused the use of those sources. So that's how they get away with a lot of that, I think. But that one group was a neo-Nazi group inside of the U.S. That they said this guy was a part of, this guy and this woman. And I'm just like, so why aren't you sending them multi-billion-dollar weapons packages? Because that's what we do to Nazis. We send them money and weapons if they're in Ukraine. And I looked this group up. This group trains with the Azov battalion in Ukraine. They have a branch over there, and they travel back and forth. And there's people who are members of both the Azov and this group that they called a domestic terror group and arrested over here. Yeah, we send them weapons at anything they ask for. We send them over. It's just like mind-boggling. We're literally funding Nazis, and people are like, yeah, stand with Nazis, and just like, what the fuck is going on?
It's hard to tell anymore. I don't know what to think of it. Like I said, we just kind of like sit back and watch it, like, watching dumpster fire, and just kind of like, well, let's see what happens next, I guess.
There's got to be something coming, though. I feel like COVID was small potatoes. They were like, let's see what we can get away with. Let's throw that out there. And let's see if now we can just tell our kids they're trans when they're 2. That's fine. We can just give them hormone blockers. No big deal.
Right. Yeah.
Hide that from everybody. And then they test out. Let's see if people will support this country that's clearly used for money laundering from our country. And that's fine. They did it. Okay. And people will fall in line every time. So I don't know what the big thing coming is, but it's got to be something bigger.
Aliens.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. This idea of just seeing how far they can go, because it's been like a propaganda, a revelation of the method the past 5 years or so, where they just say, we're lying to you, and we're going to tell you we're lying to you. They have these e-girls that are recruiting like young gamers to the military now because they did all these woke ads.
On that is fucking wild.
Yeah,
and
dude.
Open about it.
Wide open about it. And one of those videos was like, you see it visually too. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. And this girl, she's very attractive too. And she's decked out. She's always got the gun. She's 20 years old. They're calling her a PSYOP girl. She's calling herself a PSYOP girl. And she's literally in the Army PSYOP division. It's nuts. It was a post-ironic propaganda, I think they were calling it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, here, I'm going to pull it up. They literally, I just searched PSYOP girl, and
that's her. Yeah.
So she's on YouTube,
there's a bunch of these girls TikTok.
Too. Yeah. And so what's the main message? Just to get people into the.
It's to get, it's just basically like some of them are, she's on TikTok talking about how everybody needs to get off TikTok because China's evil. But she's on TikTok. She's sending people on Instagram.
She's on TikTok. Okay.
Right. And she's saying stuff in some of her videos like, we can hang out together in the army, because she's a good looking chick and there's going to be a lot of these kids that they're targeting who are going to show up and they're going to be like, hey, where's this hot e-girl? I just see a bunch of other angry guys like me. And then they're going to give them weapons because they're sexually frustrated. And they can just start blowing people up. It's like it's almost like an attempt to create like an incel army.
Yeah. Hey, that's probably the best army, to be fair. I mean, they're angry, pent up, they get full of testosterone, they just want to go fucking murder somebody.
Well,
It's a way better army than the one that's coming for America right now with go ahead, Ben, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh no, you're fine. I was gonna say it's funny because back in the day, you actually needed like badass special forces of anti-terrorism and sabotage and things like that and demolition to go sabotage. Now, no, you need that fat kid in his mom's basement who knows how to code because you can sabotage another country from his basement. It's like the whole thing of cyber warfare. Everybody always thinks like, oh, they hacked Sony. It's like, dude, they can hack your fucking computer and watch your life. They can fuck with your electrical grid. They don't need to sabotage the pole anymore with explosives. No, they just type in something and boom, you don't have power anymore, or they have power to your house. It's like the whole shift of that is crazy now, how they're looking more and more for those computer engineers and coders and things that you don't need somebody to be trained as a ghost in another society. No, they don't ever have to leave their mom's basement and they can hire them and, make a lot of money.
Yeah, there's like the
Jen's
kid
point
who
about something big coming. It's probably a cyber thing. I mean, Klaus Schwab basically said that with Cyber Polygon and all that shit going on, and I think they've been kind of beta testing it here and there.
Absolutely,
with the FAA thing with the what's it called, the notice to airmen or the NOTAM system that went down a couple months ago, a month ago. I mean, that could just be beta testing for these hacks, and if, like Ben's saying, they can hack into your computer and look at everything. You think those people don't work for the CIA or FBI? I mean, they're in it. They're all doing that for 100% sure.
Yeah. And there's cyber attacks like every day. They don't necessarily cover them, but they happen all the time. Well, one that comes to mind was the Grand Theft Auto leak. GTA 6 is supposedly going to come out. I don't know when, but they've been working on the game, and some like 16 or 17-year-old hacked in and got a bunch of the footage of their development and leaked it. And it was just this fucking big thing. And he had done it before. So he had hacked something else big before. I can't remember what it was, when he was like 14. And Rockstar Games, I'm sure, has a lot of money and probably securities in place, but if there's 16-year-olds hacking like the biggest gaming companies, there's 16-year-olds that can hack, and 20-year-olds and whatever. And it makes me think of schools. You have these teachers at schools trying to prevent kids from doing stuff when they don't know anything about the technology, and the kids know everything about the technology. Absolutely. Like they can hack it and shit.
You just brought it up, so I looked it up, and one of the top articles from Games Radar Plus, I don't know if you're familiar with that one. They do a lot of stuff with reviews and whatnot, but it says GTA Online players worry that GTA 6 is the only thing that can prevent a, quote, never-ending stream of security flaws.
Wow.
Like, no fucking shit. I'm not surprised at all. Like, that's exactly where we're heading now. I was looking up a few recently of different games that are coming out, and obviously the big push, because you're seeing a lot of with this next gen stuff, whether it be the Xbox X and S series, the fact that now you can get Ryzen or the other brand and 3000 series laptop game video cards in laptops. Now they finally upgraded that, so everything is moving in this gnarly progression. Obviously everything else that follows it. They were saying, with where we're at with the Oculus and other VR and AR systems, where things are now 4K and there are even now 8K, it's not widely used, but they actually have 8K resolution capabilities.
Damn.
You're also talking about 8K moving from 60 frames a second, which I believe is 120 hertz, all the way up to 240. Now they've had 240 for a while, but that's 120 frames a second at 8K resolution. And you're talking about the generators now that are coming out are so hyper realistic that when you mix in VR or AR with this kind of system, people are never going to want to leave because they can have a zero. I mean, it's been like that with games for a long time, but they can have the most realistic entertainment without ever having to have, you know, the byproduct of what would that be like in real life.
Right.
Movies like Gamer and Ready Player One, of this idea that at some point it's going to be exactly what Gamer showed back, I think it was in 2009, where you get a chip implanted if you're a criminal.
Yep.
And at that point, somebody else on their VR or AR machine is now controlling you like a video game, except for now the video game is you controlling an actual person and you get points and stuff. I'm like, I could totally fucking see that happening.
Like, seriously, have you guys ever used any of that VR stuff?
I actually have the Oculus. I won it, so I didn't buy it, but I won it, and I've used it before.
Like it's crazy,
but like I have the Oculus 2, and it's really not.
You got the 2.
Yeah, so it's not quite there. There's some of the other ones. I think PlayStation or somebody else makes one that's a little better, but it's not. It doesn't feel like you're there. It is cool and it's kind of fun, but it makes her sick on some of the games because it
does kind of
strange. Yeah.
I found myself walking all over the whole house. I'm like, holy shit, I'm in the kitchen now. Jesus Christ. I played one game on it, The Room. They did a Room VR, and it's really fun. It's a puzzle game, but you're in this house or in different places, and you form a circle to walk around in, and you have no fucking clue where you are after 45 minutes of playing this game. You have open your eyes, and it's
I took it off
in a different direction in
the fridge. I'm like, oh, that's
you're like across the street.
You completely lose the whole concept of where you actually are in real time in the real world. It's very scary.
And it's very disorienting when somebody talks to you in the real world. Like my kid came out and was asking me for something, and I'm like, whoa, I'm hearing voices now. Like, what?
Or if you get through to the circle, the boundary that you create for yourself so that you don't crash into the wall. When you get close to that and your hands cross the threshold, you can see your real hands through the Oculus, even though the Oculus is your face completely. You can like kind of see.
It's got all those cameras on. It's nuts. I've used the previous one, not that Oculus 2, and the characters are all cartoonish and shit. And like it was still very strict. So they had like a VR poker lounge in the one that I played, and I remember when I tried it, I was looking around, and there were these 2 other people, these legless bodies, and these 2 are just running into each other. And I looked at it for a minute, and I was like, are y'all trying to hump each other? And they were like, yeah. Okay. And
then that's like that thing in Black Mirror. The 2 guys that are best friends, but they get in, one of them's a female
that's the
character,
creepiest shit.
And they can feel the sensations while they're in the VR, so they start fucking each other, and then they find out, they're like, hold on a second, if we're not actually doing it, but the sensations are there, and in the game we're actually attracted to each other, is it gay? It's that age-old question, is it gay, bro?
That was the gayest episode that I've ever seen in Black Mirror.
Everyone needs to go watch that episode. It's called Striking Vipers. Go watch it.
I love you, Jen, so much.
There's like a few clips of that episode that I cut out, and I just always send to my friends because I can't. It's the guy's like, 1 minute I'm fucking a fucking bear, and he just starts listing off this weird shit that he's fucking. And he's like, then I'm fucking you or something. I was like, oh god, it's like twisted.
Oh
man.
God.
That's what Black Mirror does.
Far away from Black Mirror, like all that stuff in Black Mirror, I think is just spoiler alerts for what we're probably gonna, to some extent
for real
be looking at. But what I want to know is all that when we're talking about the hackers, why do these motherfuckers always hack stuff like GTA? Like hack the banks, dude. If you can do this, hack the government, hack the bank, like shut some shit down if you're gonna do
16 and they don't have any idea how that works or how it would possibly affect their life because their parents pay for everything.
Hack
or that they'll get in a lot of trouble
their accounts. Yeah,
they're probably in training. They probably recognize these guys because this guy had done it before to a pretty big one, and he was out doing it again. He was too young to be in prison for too long, and they probably recruit him because they need people like that, and they're going to gaming for a lot of this recruiting, and they're also modeling a lot of stuff after gaming. So they have these. The military host a bunch of these, is it Call of Duty? I think it is. That the big game that I think there's a new release of it. They have all these tournaments that's hosted by the military, and kind of like the chick, although it's not always chicks, but it's these accounts. They talk about it in a fun, gamerish way, and people don't realize it's actually military recruitment and training, and they're trying to like find the best people. It's like Ender's Game shit, where that's going to be maybe some of the warfare. I like your hat, by the way.
Thank you. I usually wear my gun hat, but I was wearing my Sublime shirt, and so I was going for the the stoner pothead gamer look today.
You got the Nintendo on his hat. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that were saying that games like that, like Call of Duty, are like kind of recruitment tools, and that goes off of what was that show? Not Mr. Robot, the other one, the one where he's like playing the game and then they jump into that timeline. Remember? Fuck, I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, I think maybe it's more like psychological recruitment though, because I mean, these fat nerds playing these games that are number 1, number 2 in the world, there's no way they're going to be able to move around the battlefield like that. They can use their controllers, sure, but it's a whole other level of when you have an actual gun and you're actually on the field and have to run and shit.
It's Future Man. I'm sorry.
Future Man, that's what it's called. Yeah.
Isn't that? He beats the level, and the way that he does it, they come in and they're like, okay, we actually need to recruit you to save the world because you're the only person who figured this out.
Yeah, that's a great show.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
But I can see that's government doing that too.
Yeah, me too. I think the VR or the AR is what the VR, no matter how real they get it, it's just this fucking headsets give people a headache.
Yes.
Yeah. That's why I think the next gen VR is going to be something like Neuralink or something that goes directly into your cerebral cortex that you're not it's almost like being unconscious where and that's Black Mirror shit too, but where it's all happening in your head. So you feel everything because it's still stimulating, different neural pathways and all that shit. So I don't think the actual visual VR is going to go that much further than it is now. Because I mean, unless you're in a totally immersive environment where you have like a treadmill or something to run on, like on Ready Player One. But until that happens, or it's Matrix style and they stick it in the back of your neck.
I don't think it's ever going to get good because they're going to want to promote people to get the implant. They're going to make it so that the VR or AR isn't good enough, but the implant is great. And that way you're going to completely lose self-control. You won't think about the fact that someone could take control of you and hack you at any time. I mean, maybe that will come out, but that's not going to be the motivation. They're going to be like,
that's like the
realist.
Yeah. It's like the contradiction of it too. Cause it's like we hear about the cybersecurity and the hacks all the time, but they're also like, put everything on the cloud, trust the cloud. You go, you don't, and like, I remember when that stuff first came out years and years ago. And I was like, no, it's going to get hacked. And then all these, nude pictures on people's cell phones are released. And I'm just like, obviously that's going to happen. It's gotten to the point where I've started to really like think about the theory of like maybe civilization has advanced this far like 7 or 8 times already and blown itself up.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, we were talking about that on a show recently where we were saying, with the deep fakes, and they can deep fake a video, your voice, everything, and you won't know what's really there in front of you. Maybe we should just start meeting up in person and just start walking everywhere and driving and just get to see people face to face. And I know we're having a Zoom call right now, obviously, and that's what we were doing on the last show as well, where we talked about it. But it might just come to a point where we can't do this anymore. We're just going to have to meet up in person, and that might not be the worst thing in the world.
No, I completely
holographic fakes, deep fake holograms and shit, and then you really don't even know if you're even looking at Brad when he's sitting next to you. No, who knows?
It's crazy, man. They've tried
the AR thing. I think the AR thing is probably going to be a little more widely used because it's something that they could. I mean, they've already been testing this on contacts, like a heads-up display on contact lenses and like that. That's straight up Black Mirror as well. Fuck the Google Glass, those dorky fucking glasses. No. It's probably going to be some kind of contact that you look at somebody and it IDs their face, pulls up their Facebook or what. Who knows how crazy?
Yeah, it's like a spider. It goes inside your pupil and just latches onto your eyeball forever.
It's nuts because like it's kind of cool too, but it's also like how awful it could be because it's like you can just push it up, but it's like oh god, now my eyeballs can be hacked. Yeah, and so they pitch those benefits real heavy of all this, and they just don't worry about all the hacking shit. how we can tap
no,
into
that's
all that.
conspiracy theory talk. Don't be a crazy prepper person. That's wild. They play us off as being the crazy humans who are looking into things that they don't want us to look into at all.
Meanwhile, most of the people in this community are batting at least 900 for the last couple of years.
Seriously, yeah. I love how now I've seen like 3 or 4 articles past couple of weeks where it's like how right-wing extremists got into fitness influencing. It's all about how they're all into working out and shit. Now you see somebody working out, they're probably an extremist domestic terrorist.
Oh my God.
Jesus.
That is unreal. But you can be a fat pig and sit, as long as you take your boosters, you're good. You're into health. And I think that's going away too, though. Like, I mean, Biden officially declared the pandemic to be over on a certain date in May, I believe, which is great. Thank you for giving it. We should make it a holiday. The pandemic.
Celebrate them. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of going. I mean, they keep talking about the next one. So I wouldn't doubt if they've got a few more in the chamber, just in case they need one.
I've seen so many articles that talk about specifically saying that masks were not effective at all during the pandemic.
That was from Fox News, though. It's a right-wing extremist thing.
It still was allowed to come out, and nobody said that at all up until very recently. And then, so they're talking about masks not being safe and effective at all, or not effective. And then there were a couple articles a few months ago saying that people who are still afraid of COVID are costing the US economy billions of dollars by not going back to work. So they're basically saying these people who listened to CNN,
they've slowly like changed their position on a lot of it, and it's just like you were advocating people losing their jobs. Some people were advocating people being jailed. I know that I got into I caused a scene in a hospital once when I was told I was not allowed to go in with my dad because I wasn't vaccinated. When the reason, like my dad, I have pretty good evidence that he had a vaccine related issue, and like I had a Google from their publications. It was identified as a rare issue. Of course, they're all rare because they don't identify them. They try to ignore them. And the case study matched his. The first doctor I asked that to ran me off and told me I was going to die if I didn't get vaccinated. And so I said, we're going to go see somebody else. Next doctor I was going to see said, yes, I've seen this. And you could be right. And it was at that place. And she had to come out into the lobby and walk me in because the people in the lobby had been their protocol had been, you cannot let somebody in who's not vaccinated, which was completely different. So up until then, they had never had that. But all of a sudden, one day we come in, they start asking me if I'm vaccinated. And I'm like, no. And they said, well, you can't come in. And so I was like, well, that's like the reason we're here. So I have to also get the vaccine because my uncle had the exact same issue as my dad at the same time frame after the vaccine. Yeah. I'm like, do I need to also have the same issue in order to come in to see you guys? And so it's messed up. And now they just kind of want to slow walk this and say, oh, oops, we're sorry on something. It's a little fucked up. Yeah.
It's very fucked up. The vaccine thing here, we went last year when Ben and I went to the hospital to visit our friend. They didn't ask us at all if we were vaccinated. We just walked in like we own the place. This year, or maybe the very end of last year, I went in to deliver flowers for someone, and they asked me if I was vaccinated and said I couldn't go up. This is the very end of 2022.
That's what it was for me. Yeah.
That's wild. And now I think they're just, it's fine now. It was just a few months at the very end of COVID. They're like, let's try that. Okay, it didn't work.
And
no, whatever.
The way they're playing it off is fucking bizarre. They're like, oh, yeah, it didn't work as well as we thought, but that's fine. Sorry
you had to watch your loved ones die on a Zoom call. Fuck you.
It's all good,
Fuck
man.
all those people for not standing up.
Fuck each and every one of them. Fuck off. When you're talking about the doctor, like actually being able to admit that you might be right about a vaccine injury, that's rare. And
she was super cool. And like, totally. I didn't
mind that you can't even ask those questions about vaccines in general, like whether it's the childhood ones or this one. You ask a question, people get fucking pissed, and they're like, "You crazy anti-vaxxer." It's like, what?
It was like shocking to me, dude. Like, it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't super shocking, but the way this one reacted was. So my mom had a rare disease for a long, long time before she passed away. In 18 years. So they said that she wasn't, when she first got it, that she was going to die in less than 2 years, and she didn't. She constantly did what they said she'd never do again, over and over again through the course of those 18 years. And so I kind of learned watching my dad, because my dad didn't take any shit from him. And so it was like, all right, if you're going to tell us some bullshit, I'm going to look it up. And I learned to be prepared. And I would always look shit up, and I would kind of the way I try to approach being a conspiracy theorist, because I know that they're going to have all these arguments. So I got to be more prepared than they are. And so they would say this bullshit, and I'd be like, okay, I'm not just making that up. Here's what I'm basing this on. And so like I didn't just come in flippantly. And the reason I was asking him was because in the study that I had found, it said, if there is this reaction, do not get the booster. And I knew they were going to be pressuring him to get the booster. So I wasn't just trying to be like, oh, I prove you wrong. I was asking because I wanted to know for that reason. And I couldn't even get the whole sentence out. And he just started going, no. I mean, it was just like this visceral reaction to him and this is a doctor that my dad had gone to a while. It's crazy. And I said, I stopped him, and he goes, well, if you have something I can look at. And I said, I do. And I pulled it out, and I had it fucking highlighted, and I showed it right there. And he looked at it, and he kind of like short circuited for a minute. And then he was just like, well, it wasn't that. You're going to die if you don't get the vaccine. And I was like, all right, we're leaving now. But in the second doctor, I was just like, look, I know I'm not supposed to ask this question. And she said, you can ask any question you want. I was like, all right. And she was super fucking cool about it. So I know, I give doctors a lot of shit, but I also know there's like a lot of good ones too that are open-minded and shit. And that was a cool one.
Yeah, and those are the ones you don't hear from. Those are the ones that are shut off of social media, and the licenses get pulled and everything like that. It's fucking.
There are good people everywhere. I mean, the whole medical community is not a bunch of people screaming to get vaccinated. There are a lot of them, but it's the same as saying someone from LA or San Francisco or Boston is a fully vaccinated, crazy Democrat. A lot of them aren't. There are a lot of them that are too. But you can't just take the whole city or community and label them as one thing. That's what they want us to do, but I'm not doing that shit.
A lot of my friends who were are Democrats and were very, just their social media profiles a couple of years ago, just about as crazy as any you would see now, who now are like, what the fuck? This is all bullshit. So I think that's a positive thing.
I think
100%.
the last couple of years has irreparably damaged pharmaceutical industry's reputations, even worse than they already were. I mean, they're all, like Charlie Robinson says, they're all literally convicted felons, these pharmaceutical companies. You can go back and look at all the times they've been convicted of criminal activity, not to mention civil suits and other things, but they just have so much money that they can make it seem like everything's fine, because nobody really looks into that whole aspect of the drug companies, is that they are actual criminals, and
right,
trusting them with this brand new product. Ben, you got something going on over there.
I was trying to find the exact quote because I didn't want to misspeak. Hamlin, the football player that collapsed on the field at 24 and survived, didn't die. Okay,
he did. I think he did.
So he did an interview recently with a Good Morning America host, and the guy says, you're 24 in peak physical condition, can run circles around me right now. How did the doctor describe what happened to you? He waited about 13 seconds and said, that's something I want to stay away from.
Yeah.
Said that live on the camera. And so then later on, they asked him a couple other questions, and he was like, it's still something I'm trying to work through. But everybody was talking about, they're like, it looked like he was really struggling in that pause of how he was supposed to answer this, and then just said, that's something I want to stay away from. He didn't want to say at all, what he was told about why it happened, this, that, and the other. And they obviously are correlating all these stories of, I forget the time span, but there was like 36 athletes that died in the middle of a game through this certain period. In the last year, 2 years, over 700 people, over 700 people have died in the last couple of years, all 30 and under.
I can't verify this. I saw on Twitter, and plan on looking up later that the NFL had made a recommendation now that the season is over or the Players Association or something for players to do something about checking their hearts. Again, that needs to be verified. I saw that earlier today. See, that stuff is just like, I saw that interview and it was Michael Strahan asking him that.
Yes.
And I wonder why that question was allowed to be asked.
Right.
Like, that's what confuses me about it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and his response is crazy because when this first happened, there was this wave of something nobody's ever heard of before I think it's called commotio cordis or something. Do you remember hearing about that? It's like when somebody gets hit so hard in the chest that it actually stops their heart. But the problem is that he was like dead for however many minutes while they're giving the CPR, and then it stopped again. So I don't think it would be that if it stopped again. So everybody was saying that though. The vaccine is commotio cordis, this thing nobody's ever fucking hardly heard about before. So obviously it wasn't that, because he would have just had no problem saying that in the interview that, oh, I got hit right in the chest and it stopped my heart. Instead he
said,
you know.
Well, and Bongino had a segment right after this happened before the Strahan interview came out. And regardless of what you think of Bongino, he made a good point, is that he goes, all right, why is everybody being nasty to the people who are wondering if it's a vaccine that's causing all of these people to fall over? He goes, people, it's a brand new medical anything. It doesn't matter if they're wrong, but they're allowed to fucking ask questions.
Right.
They're allowed to ask, hey, is this possibly because of this, that, or the other? And it wouldn't matter what it is, jab, a pharmaceutical, pill that you take. If something gets released and all of a sudden, shortly after, people who are known to have been taking it are dropping dead, the natural question is wondering whether or not that's what's causing it. But the second you do, everybody starts shitting on you about, oh, you're anti-vax, you're conspiracy nut, this, that, and the other. He's like, guys, we're allowed to ask questions. It's natural.
It would be the same thing if somebody going to a buffet and everybody who goes there always gets sick and they're shitting out their ass. I guess that's normally how you shit, but pissing out your ass, and it would be like saying, no, it's offensive to ask if that restaurant maybe has bad practices with food handling, because everybody that goes there is getting some kind of diarrhea or something.
Well, because they were releasing articles right around COVID. Do you remember reading the article that said critical thinking is hurting our economy? Critical thinking.
Right. I did see that. Yeah.
Absolutely insane. So they were training people to not think about shit and just blindly follow along. Absolutely.
Totally. The assault is on questioning, and the narrative is what the ultimate assault is, broadly. I saw this thing. I'm going to do a show about it tomorrow. But it was this, I don't even know how I stumbled upon it, but it was something to do with Hamlin. And it was one of these disinformation fact check things. And ultimately, what I learned was this is how fact checkers do their fact checks. And the video that explained it to me, it was from this group called MediaWise. And MediaWise guy, I think he was on like a Council on Foreign Relations or some other panel discussion I was watching. And that's what made me look it up. They had a kid who was 16 years old who looked like he was about 12 presenting the information, because they're mainly targeting it at younger people. And the question he was answering, they have a whole bunch of videos. The one that I watched, he was answering, did Damar Hamlin have a heart attack because of the vaccine? Which he declared, no, that's crazy. Even though half of his claims, he couldn't even know. Like, one of his things was like, first of all, we don't even know if he was vaccinated. I was like, we don't really. They wouldn't have just said that.
Yeah.
He wasn't that, unless they were setting people up. Now they do that. Like that story
we
about.
would know, because they make a pariah out of people who aren't, especially in the NFL. We
Look
would
what happened to Aaron Rodgers by lying about it. They fucking tried to ream him.
Kyrie Irving. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. So yeah, I think we're pretty sure. I mean, if he came out and said he wasn't vaccinated, then they were just setting people up to be demonized, if that's the case. So that, and he's vaccinated. And so the video goes on to say, so how can you figure this out? It teaches you how to tell disinformation. And basically it's like, what people usually do is vertical read. They see an article and they read vertically, and they look at what the article presents and the evidence and all that. But what that causes is that you can get into an echo chamber of false information. You don't need to do vertical reading. You need to do, or horizontal reading. You need to do vertical reading. And they teach a technique of vertical reading. And how vertical reading works is, when you see a claim like that, is you just open up a bunch of other tabs and they showed an example this kid did, and it was like New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, and you read all of the headlines only. And what do all the other experts say? And by experts, they mean the mainstream networks, and they read only the headlines. And since all the headlines said no, the vaccine didn't cause him to collapse, therefore, based on the vertical reading technique, you know that all of the experts believe that he did not collapse because of the vaccine. Therefore, he did not. So a couple of things. One, simply the idea that because the majority believes something to be true, that makes it true. That's a logical fallacy. Two, opening up and reading only headlines it's like the biggest propaganda tactic since people started writing articles. These networks bury the information that contradicts the claims the headlines imply in the lower third of the articles, because statistically they've done studies on this. Those are the least read parts of the articles.
Right.
And 70% of people only read the headlines in the first paragraph. And it's just like they're telling people this is how fact checkers fact check them. I mean, that explains a lot if that's how they fact check information. But what a shitty thing to teach kids to do. Instead of all that horizontal reading, just be an idiot.
Yeah.
Just read the headline. That is what Planet Retard, that the segment that we do on Sundays typically, is based on. We pull articles based on the headline. And the headlines that I pull are deliberately because I want to know the mentality of the fucking moron who read that headline and was like, oh yeah, totally true.
Right.
And read the article and see how completely different it is.
It's so opposite when you read the fucking article. The headline plays into what people want to believe, the target audience, and they know they're not going to read any further.
Yeah.
And Google knows exactly as a search engine which ones to resurrect that it wants you to see based on what you're asking.
Absolutely.
Very Tavistockian.
Yeah, totally.
The fact checker thing drives me nuts too, because half the time, at least the little banners that they'll put up on social media, like fact check, missing context or whatever, their check to it or their little statement is this isn't true. That's basically all they say.
I know. And they do circular evidence. So it's like New York Times, they'll cite MSNBC will cite Joe Biden, whatever. It's just they'll cite bullshit after bullshit and never actually the evidence. I got to plug my computer in. It fell out and my battery's low. I'm still listening though.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, we can probably wrap up here anyway. We're gonna get some tacos going on, but tell us about anything you got coming up with the propaganda report world. What's going on over there?
Well, just check out the show. I do a show. I try to do 4 shows a week. I definitely do 3 shows a week. It's at propagandafight.com is my new website. And at Freedom Act Radio, you can find me on Twitter at youtube.com/Brad Binkley. They usually cut off my streams, but they haven't been kicking my videos off anymore. So I'm posting there a little bit. And rumble.com/propaganda report. And that's what I got going on.
Are you still doing stuff over on Rockfin or?
Yeah, rockfin.com/propaganda. Thank you.
I'm trying to type my notes in real time here so I don't forget all your fucking
There's
links.
so many platforms now. It's good though. I think it's good to have a lot of platforms.
Well, dude, thanks so much for coming on. We need to get you out to California, or maybe we'll go, out that direction so we can hang out in the real world. So
I think we'd have a lot of fun partying together. Honestly.
Oh fuck yeah.
Yeah. Do it.
So you should come over here though, because we have a pool and shit, and we can barbecue. Not like real Californians. Or how?
Yeah, hell yeah.
All right, I'm gonna leave everybody with this last AI thing. It's another Trump one. I can't remember what this one was, but hang on, we'll do it.
This is President Donald Trump, and you're listening to Legit Bat Podcast, the best, most terrific show in America or the world.
Perfect. Thank you, President Trump. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes.
Later.